I genuinely don't think I could have done any worse if I tried. Hello everyone, it's Josh, your boy here, and in today's video, we're going to be reviewing my championship predictions for the 24-25 season. We're going to be starting from the bottom and slowly working our way up, and we're going to be looking at the team I predicted to finish bottom at the start of the season. And that is, I think many people have this team as well, Plymouth Argyle. I predicted them 24th, they came 23rd. So I wasn't far off this one at all. I feel like a lot of people had this opinion, and as soon as Rooney was appointed, everyone had this opinion where it was just going to go a bit wrong, and that is unfortunately what happened for them. I didn't do too bad on this one. I think it was probably the most obvious prediction of them all, really. Obviously I didn't get it right, I was one off, but they were always going to be down there, and they had a little bit more fight than a lot of people thought, and until the final day everyone thought they might stay up, or at least had a chance, but results didn't go their way, and yeah, they're down at 23rd, so that is a +1 onto my tally. Now, moving on to 23rd, the team I thought were going to finish 23rd was Oxford. I feel like this was a fair prediction as well. You know, newly promoted teams, they often come back down. And Oxford, out of all of them, they were quite surprising that they went up. Everyone thinking Bolton probably would from the playoffs. But, you know, they turned up on the day and they've gotten themselves a ticket to the Championship. And they've been really good this season. They've probably been one of my favourite teams from a neutral perspective, just to watch and enjoy them. I always find myself rooting for these, like, lower down teams in the Championship. I always like them. And I would have been really sorry to see them go down, but actually they did not finish 23rd at all. They finished 17th, so that's a +6 to my tally. They had a great season, and I was a little bit wrong with that prediction. In 22nd, I had Derby County, who actually finished 19th. So, again, not a terrible prediction, but I did have them to go down. I just thought they seemed like they might just not have enough. I knew it was going to be close. Like, this relegation race has been absolutely crazy. But I did just think Derby would fall short, and they had a terrible start to the season, if I remember right. I think it was when they had Paul Warne, and they were just so poor. And they turned it around with John Eustace and stuff, and yeah, they turned it to an alright side, and it did go down to the final day still, but they stayed up, so well done to them. And that adds another 3 to my tally. Already on 10 after 3 predictions. 21st, I had Blackburn, and I've got this one very wrong. They didn't have a bad season at all, and were up and around the playoffs until about the last 10 games when the wheels fell off. You know, the manager left, obviously, and then they got Ismail in, who took a lot of time to get going. I think he won like 4 or 5 out of his last 5, something like that, quite well. But that little part just ruined the rest of the season for them. And they did a lot better than I thought, though. I can't believe I had them 21st. I feel like just the way the last season ended, obviously they were down in the dumps and stuff, and they lost Sammy Schmodic as well, and that just, for me, made me think, yeah, they're going to be down there. But no, they didn't. They did really well. And that adds a whopping 14 onto my tally. 20th, I had Swansea City, who actually finished 11th and had a decent mid-table finish. I just really expected them to be down there, to be honest. I'm not too sure why, I can't really remember. But yeah, I just put them down there and they didn't get it. I've not got too much more to say on that, to be honest. And that adds another 9 to my tally. In 19th place, I had Watford, who actually had quite a poor season anyway, and finished 14th. And I'm filming this just after the manager, Tom Cleverley's got the sack. So that's great, isn't it? So they're going to be stuck in this endless cycle again, where next season they probably get a lower down finish. And they keep sacking the managers. It's got to end. They've got to give somebody time because it's a joke. He actually did well with that squad, and I think, especially in the first half of the season, they weren't too bad if I remember right. And they did just have quite a few more losses in the second half, but I think sacking him's a bit daft, to be honest. And that does add a lovely 5 more to the tally. Moving up the table, Portsmouth, I had them in 18th. They did not finish 18th, they finished 16th. Which was very close, to be honest. It could have been like anywhere around there. They had a shocking start to the season. They were bottom of the league, I think, for a good, like, maybe half. And then they just started picking up more and more points, which I'm glad about. I think Portsmouth are a really likeable club, and you want to see them do well in the Championship. I don't think many neutrals at all were wanting them to go down, really. And I'm glad they've stayed up. They've done really well for themselves. And I've not done a bad prediction there either, I can't lie. And it's only going to add a little 2 to my tally. In 17th place, I've had another stinker, and I've put Bristol City there. I don't know why I was so negative about Bristol City, to be honest. I know they're normally around that, like, 12th to 18th mark, but I put them on the lower end of the spectrum there in 17th. And they've just not done that at all. They're in the playoffs. And actually, the day I'm filming this, they're playing Sheffield United in the playoffs tonight, and I think I am wanting Bristol City to win that one. Come on, Bristol City. Yeah, they did great this season, and I've loved seeing it. It's so good as a neutral when, like, a team like that does well. I think everyone just backs them. I think most neutrals are probably backing them for the playoffs. I don't mind anyone who goes up, apart from Sheffield United. Like, any of them other 3, I'm happy. Just not Sheffield United. No offence, Sheffield United fans. As happy as I am about Bristol City finishing in the playoffs to finish 6th, it adds 11 to my tally. 16th place, I had Millwall, who again had a better season than I thought. I feel like these last few seasons have been sort of lingering about them playoff places, not quite managing to get in there. And I thought they'd have a bit of a worse season, to be honest, this season. But no, they've not. They've done really well. And up until the final day, they were in the race. They were quite underdogs, I think. And they had Sheffield United, which is always going to be a tough game. But I think there were a few moments where they were in the playoffs, and that was nice for them. You know, it's lovely to see. And it would be crazy if Millwall were ever in the Prem. You just can't imagine it. But yeah, I had them predicted 16th, as I said. They did finish 8th and just a few points off the playoffs, I think. It might have been 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3. One of them anyway, obviously. And that does add 8 more to my tally. 15th place, I had Stoke. Yeah, I think everyone kind of thought they'd just have another quite poor season. That like lower mid-table seems to have been stuck at ever since they've got into the Championship. It's so strange to see their decline, and there's just no like sign that they're ever going to improve. I almost want them to improve because it'd be nice seeing them back in the Prem, and it's weird having like quite an established Premier League club just like suffering in the Championship. I had them to finish 15th, and they actually finished 3 lower than that in 18th, and they could have been relegated on the final day, but thankfully they steered well clear in the end. This does add another 3 onto my total. Above them, I have Cardiff in 14th, and I'm not too sure why, to be honest. I feel like all the way through the season, I was expecting them to go down, so I'm not too sure why I've tipped them to have an alright season in mid-table. They actually finished bottom of the league, 24th, so that is quite embarrassing for me. I've got them like quite a comfortable mid-table spot, but it's anything but that, and I've added 10 to my tally. 13th place now, I have Preston North End, who we all know had an absolute stinker end to the season. They were doing alright. I think it just got worse and worse with each game in this season. They didn't start off too badly, and then since then it's just been like a downhill. And a few weeks ago they were fine, and then on the final day they could have all too easily been relegated, but thankfully results went their way and kept them in the league. I had them at 13th and they finished 20th, which is mad. Them and Bristol City have been freaky this season. This does add 7 more to my tally. In 12th, in the mid-table spot, is Queen's Park Rangers, which I thought was fair enough at the time. They did in fact finish off 15th, so it's 3 places down. They didn't have a bad season. I think it got worse and worse towards the end. And they've sacked the manager now, I believe, or he's left. Something like that. I'm not sure what's going on, but I know he's not there anymore. Which is a shame, because he looked really exciting and they did play some good stuff under him. But I don't know. I just thought they'd push on that little bit more this season. Not quite playoffs, but that comfortable mid-table. And I suppose they have been, really. But just the end of the season was a little bit disappointing for me, because I just thought they had it in them just to maybe make a playoff push. It didn't quite happen, and they've ended up finishing 15th, and that's 3 more to my tally. Now, in 11th place, I have got a really weird one, and I'm not too sure why, but I've put Sheffield United there. I just feel like at the start of the season, there was a lot of talk about Sheffield United being bad, and I probably watched too many Callum Fowler videos on it and got influenced, but I just had in my head they were going to have a really poor season and just not even get into the playoffs. It was completely wrong. They ended up finishing 3rd. They had a poor end to the season after grafting out results all season. I never watched them and were impressed by them, weirdly. They always just seemed to play badly and win 1-0. It was very boring, but they might have got found out a bit towards the end, and it's put them in a playoff place in the 3rd. Unfortunately, though, for me, that does mean I'm adding 8 more to my total. And then in 10th place, we have their bitter rivals, Sheff Wednesday. I feel like a lot of people were tipping them for the playoffs this season. It just didn't quite happen. I think, especially in the second half of the season, again, results just haven't really gone their way. I think they've been the most like mid-table team in the whole league, really. I think it was probably them first who couldn't get the playoffs or anything like that, as well as being relegated. Like, they had no chance to do either. But yeah, I think they never really looked convincing for the playoffs, and there's a lot of work for Danny Röhl to do, really, because I'm a little bit disappointed with them this season. They're probably the team I'm most disappointed with. I had them predicted 10th. They did only finish 12th, which isn't a bad season by any means. You know, you want him to be comfortable in the Championship, and after last season, I think, you know, many fans can't grumble, but I did just think they'd push on that little bit more. That adds another 2 to my total. Moving up, in 9th, I thought Sunderland were going to be there. In fact, they finished 4th. I'm not too sure why. It's not really a surprise that Sunderland are in the playoffs. I just thought they'd have that little bit of the drop-off after having a couple of seasons doing quite well in the Championship. I just thought it would not be third time lucky and they'd just miss out on them playoffs this season. But no, up until like maybe January or so, they were challenging for the automatics and they were well in with a shout. But the wheels have completely fallen off, especially like the last few months of the season. They've been so poor, and I don't see them getting through in the playoffs either. I think Coventry are going to be all over them just because they've got the momentum. It's a disappointing end for them, really. But they've done a lot better than I thought they would. And you never know, they could go and go up. That's +5 to my total. In 8th, I predicted West Brom. And I'm quite surprised about this one. I didn't do too bad. They finished 9th in the end, which was a very disappointing season. And I've kind of got that right. I'm quite happy with that. It's probably one of my best predictions, because they should be getting playoffs really. And was it this season that Carlos Correa, whatever his name is, moved? I feel like that feels like ages ago now. And since he left, things got a bit worse. They appointed Tony Mowbray, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out under him. I feel really bad for him. I think everyone likes him. Everybody wanted it to work. It just didn't. After his comeback from his illness as well, it would have been great, but it just did not happen. And they finished 9th in the end, which adds one more to my total. In 7th, just missing out on the playoff places, I had Middlesbrough. And in fact, they did miss out on the playoff places on the last day as well. They finished 10th. They've been poor for some time, and if they made the playoffs, it would have been really weird, because they weren't deserving at all. They're a poor team, to be honest. And I wonder what's going to happen next season, whether they're going to give Michael Carrick another year or what. I do think he's a good manager, but it might be best for both parties to move on now. Not too much to say on Middlesbrough. I weren't too wrong on my prediction, was I? And that's +3 to my total. And now, the first playoff place, I thought, in 6th, it was going to go to Norwich. I was wrong. Norwich have been dreadful this season. I don't think they had too bad a start, but since then it just went really poor and they had some shocking results. They did pick up a little bit this season, and you have to wonder, without like Josh Sargent and that other guy who scored a lot of goals, I can't remember his name, where would they be? Because they seem to carry him quite a lot, and I predicted them 6th. I thought after a couple of poor seasons in the Championship, they finally push on. They've not done that at all. They've actually finished 13th, which is really poor for them. And as well as doing that, they've added 7 more to my tally. In 5th, and I've had an absolute nightmare here, it's Hull. I'm not sure why I've put Hull here. I was personally really disappointed that they sacked Rosenier last season. I really liked him. I think he was building something. I know they had a poor end to the season, didn't make the playoffs when they really should have done. But I thought they should have given him another season, see where things went at least. Because he's smashing it now in the French leagues, I think. It's just been such a poor season for Hull, and they're really lucky to escape, to be honest. It did go down to the final day, and if they hadn't picked up a draw at Portsmouth, they'd be in League One right now. I just can't believe I had them 5th, and they've finished 21st. Just surviving. On goal difference, I think it was. I've had an absolute nightmare here, and I deserve to have added 6 to my tally. In 4th place, I had Leeds... Ow, frick, I bit my tongue. In 4th place, I had Leeds United, who actually finished top of the league in #1 spot, so I got this one wrong. I think this was kind of a hope more than an actual prediction, to be honest. I just think it's funny to see Leeds do bad, and bad for them is finishing in the playoffs, obviously, because they are expected to finish 1st or 2nd, really. They should be doing with a squad, and they were struggling in the playoffs anyway, and I did put them there. They did finish 1st. They've had a good season, to be fair to them, and they did look like they were going a little bit. They had 1 win in 5, maybe, something like that, and I thought the wheels were falling off, but they were not, and they've won the league. So, you know what? Fair play to Leeds, and it's going to add 3 to my total. In 3rd, just missing out on automatic promotion, I had Coventry. They had such a bad start to the season. If it wasn't for that, then maybe automatics wouldn't be out of the question. But unfortunately, it just didn't go right for them at all, and it was so sad seeing them sack the manager after he's been there so long. But in the end, it looked like the right thing to do, because they bring Frank Lampard in, he's brought them up that table, and put them in a humble 5th place finish. So that's only 2 wrong from me, and I'm quite happy with this one. I think, they're a team who should be finishing in the playoffs. They've got Hadji Wright, Edgy Sims, they've got so many good players. They deserve it, really, and only adding 2 to my tally. In 2nd place, in automatic promotion, is the only prediction I've got right, and it is Burnley. I just feel like these are probably the most obvious team to get 2nd. I don't know why, I just think it makes sense, Burnley getting 2nd. It just sounds right to me. I just don't think they give the vibe of the Championship winning team this season, but they're going to go up realistically, and I just feel like they weren't going to mess around or anything like that. You can never quite trust Leeds just to do it, but I think Burnley, they've been there, done that now. They were always going to go up, and they did. And that adds 0 to my tally. And then in 1st place, and oh my god. I might just end the video now, this is so embarrassing. In 1st place, I had Luton Town. Why? I don't know. I think it was a mixture of expectation and hope. Luton were probably one of my favourite teams in the Premier last season, and I really wanted them to do well in the Championship, so I was hoping they'd go up, and I put them 1st. But I did believe they'd get 1st as well. It's not just my heart this time, it was my head as well. And I think a lot of people would have been putting them at least top 6. But no, Luton finished 23rd. That is 21 places wrong from me. 21. It's so embarrassing. They had such a bad season. And I kept thinking, after like 4 or 5 games, they're like, yeah, they kick on. After 10 games, they'll kick on. And then they sacked Rob Edwards. And just things got a little bit better when they got the new manager. But he just couldn't rescue them. It's been unlucky. But they've had an absolute nightmare of the season. and a double relegation for them. You've got to feel bad for them. And that does wrap up my predictions. And if we work out the total, I've got it written down here. I might have to fact check this, but I've got 150 difference. You normally get 1 or 2, and if you do that 24 times, you're going to get like 50 to 100. But no, 150, that is so poor from me. And Luton single-handedly ruining me there, to be honest. 21 wrong is insane. But yeah, that does wrap up this video. I hope you did enjoy. I have predicted the Premier League as well as League One, which I should probably get to at some point. If you want to see them videos, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I have been Jowshaboy. I've had fun doing this. I've got absolutely horrific ball knowledge. But I do think everybody who predicts the Championship feels the same way. It's just one of those, innit? Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.